South Jersey's home for the Sixers and Flyers.
Yeah!
He scores!
A two-hand jam!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Tuesday editions of Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live in your life in virtual living color on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Coming up at 6:20, we have Chris Franklin from NJ.com, covers the Eagles and Sixers very conveniently, so we will get into him on two fronts. Eagles transitioning from a win to now having to get ready for the Bucks, as well as Ben Simmons deciding to just show up and say, "Hey guys, I'm here. Where's my COVID test?" So strange. I mean, if the drama couldn't get any more with the Sixers, Ben Simmons decided to, tell everybody I'm going to escalate the situation and make it even more ridiculous. So we'll be getting to all of that throughout the show here. We'll get your guys' thoughts on the news of the day with the Sixers and Eagles. Of course, you can DM the show. Priority messaging thanks to First Bank of Seattle City through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. As always, you can chime in as well on the text board, 609-403-0973. And, of course, on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Before I get to my Ben Simmons stuff, I did want to give you guys the latest updates on the Eagles. If you didn't see the news over at 973 ESPN.com today, Dallas Goedert looks like he may not play on Thursday night. And he may not play because it looks like that because he tested positive for COVID, you might not have enough time to get those 2 consecutive 24-hour COVID tests in. So the way it works is in the NFL, if you have been vaccinated per their rules, not my rules, their rules. All right. I'm just telling you the facts as they are, folks. And the facts are, if you are vaccinated, you have to have 2 negative tests within 24 hours of each. And considering it's already Tuesday when this news came down, it's looking unlikely you have Goedert on Thursday night, which changes the dynamic of at least how you would hope the offense would function. Or it may be an opportunity for someone else to step up, like a Jack Stoll, for example. We saw him in the goal line package on Sunday's win. So we know that he is part of the team's, different formations, different plans. Interesting to see if he gets an expanded role or maybe they zero in more on Zach Ertz to get more playing time. But so it looks like Goedert is not going to play. That's the news on that front. The other news that came down today, I want everybody to keep an eye on is, so the Eagles came out with their first injury report for the week. Now, the injury report, may I remind you guys, on a week of Thursday football, it's all walkthrough. So even though they call it practice on the injury report, they're actually just extended walkthroughs. So Derek Barnett, Jason Kelsey, limited, but it looks like they're both going to play. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, full participants. They're all fine. But obviously the big name that everyone's talking about is Lane Johnson with a personal matter. And the reason I want to point this out is because I see a lot of people starting to have some very uneducated opinions about the situation. And I want to remind everybody what happened last night for a real-time example of why everyone needs to chill on Lane Johnson. Because the reality is the only thing we know for sure is that Lane will not play in the game on Thursday night. He is not practicing with the team this week. And according to Jason Kelsey, he spoke to Lane and he told Lane that, we're here for if you need us. And he told the media that I'm not going to divulge any information. When Lane's ready to have that conversation, he'll tell you guys. And the reason why I want everyone to chill when it comes to Lane Johnson stuff is because last night, the initial reports about the John Gruden situation was that Mark Davis, went to John Gruden on Monday and they had a conversation and now he's fired. But then about 20, 30 minutes later, the news came out was, well, no, Gruden called Mark Davis to let Davis know that he was resigning. So in a very short amount of time, the entire picture of the story changed. And by the way, in a few days, it went from John Gruden calling people names on Friday to then it being discovered that he actually is very, very comfortable with using misogynist and racial and other types of slurs in his common conversations with people on public email platforms. So the stories can change. The stories can evolve. So all I do is ask everyone out there, when it comes to Lane Johnson, don't assume anything and don't presume you know anything until you have all the facts and information. I had one individual trying to tell me that Lane Johnson was soft because he's out with a personal matter. To which I told the person, listen, never call somebody soft without more information. You don't know what's going on in Lane Johnson's life. You don't know what's going on that is causing him to not play. How many times has Lane Johnson tried to play through injury, tried to fight through things, not giving his 100%, but he was trying to give his best for the team? A lot of people want to say things right now without having information. And I just suggest to everybody to just back up. And until we know more about what's going on with Lane Johnson, don't assume you know anything. Don't go around throwing words like so-and-so is soft. Don't say stupid stuff that you have no idea about. You don't know Lane Johnson personally. You don't know what's going on in his life. This is a man who has been very, very public in his usage of social media. He's very open with the media about anything and everything. Remember, this is the same guy who was throwing Chip Kelly under the bus. Chip Kelly's final year here. Lane Johnson has not put out a single tweet since September 30th. He has been absolutely quiet on the social media front. Every platform, he has nothing updated. Twitter, YouTube, the Gram, he hasn't said anything. For a guy who is as open and as out in public as he is, to be this quiet, it's serious. So don't assume that you know what's going on in somebody's life. You don't know somebody's personal struggle. You don't know the deep, dark secrets of everybody. So also, as I said to that person this weekend, and I'll say to all of you guys out there, don't assume you know what's going on with Lane Johnson. Let's get some more information before we make assumptions. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. So we'll get more into the Eagles coming up with Chris Franklin of NJ.com coming up in about 10 minutes from now. Of course, Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN being brought to you by the folks over at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. It's time to experience sports betting done right. With live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get in on all the games you love at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. The retail sportsbook is conveniently located right off the boardwalk, featuring 5 betting windows, a large video wall, a sports ticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seating. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet with FanDuel Sportsbook, only at Bally's in Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now, there is someone we do know a lot about. I feel like I know more about Ben Simmons than I want to know at this point. And this is I will classify this, a young man, and I'll call him that, not just because he's younger than me, but because of the fact that he's acting immaturely in many ways. This is a young man who didn't tell his agent, didn't tell him about the Sixers, didn't really inform anybody, just decided to show up in Philadelphia last night and say, "Let me in the door. Where's my COVID test?" According to reports today, he met with Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers. He's getting his physical. Per COVID protocols, he has to not be around his teammates for 5 days until they verify he's completely clear of COVID. No update on if he's going to play or not this year. But here's what I do know. Every turn of the last few months of this soap opera that has been the Ben Simmons situation has only proven more and more that Ben Simmons just does not get it. He lacks maturity. He lacks professional etiquette. He lacks the simple things that, frankly, many of us were raised to think and do with our lives. You know, just like there were many people who were raised to never say the slurs that John Gruden was dropping in emails, there's many of us who were raised in a professional etiquette way to never act the way Ben Simmons has. Listen, you guys can complain all you want about Ben Simmons missing 3 throws, which is unacceptable, not shooting threes, which is still bizarre no matter how you want to paint it. Ben Simmons not taking that open shot under the basket, which was disturbing in many senses. But I've contended the entire time, something is wrong with Ben Simmons. There is something off about this young man. His mental state, his mental approach, how he handles his business, something does not add up. You don't show up unannounced and just say, "Let me in the door and go get a COVID test." I know it's not literally what he said, but that's basically what happened. Nobody knew he was showing up. So now everyone's got to bend over backwards for Ben Simmons to meet with him and make sure he's all taken care of now. This is an individual who is immature, entitled, and is disconnected from reality. Because there's nobody else on earth who would act the way that he does and be allowed to keep doing what they're doing. But because he's a professional athlete, we make exceptions for people who have special abilities. That's the world we live in. Ben Simmons is a 3-time All-Star. You know how I know that? Because he's told me multiple times in interviews. Ben Simmons is a 2-time NBA defensive first-teamer. You know how I know that? Because it's on every stat site you pull up. Ben Simmons has led the league in 3-pointers off assists. You know how I know that? Because I've heard it on TV about 100 times. But I'll tell you who Ben Simmons really is. And I would say this to Ben Simmons' face. If I could have a conversation with Ben Simmons, it has to be off the record. I would genuinely say to Ben Simmons, "Ben, I don't care one iota about your resume. Ben, I want to know if you're mentally okay. I want to know if your headspace is all right." Because there's a lot of stuff in Ben Simmons' life, from that LSU documentary to how he has handled his personal life, to how he's handled the situation with the 76ers. There's a lot of things that's going on in his world that make me question his mental clarity. And I told you guys months ago, Ben Simmons doesn't need to shoot threes. Ben needs to find a shrink, a psychiatrist. He needs to find Jesus. He needs to find something to clear his head because this doesn't add up. Normal people don't do these things. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We'll talk with Chris Franklin of NJ.com about the Eagles and Sixers coming up next right here. Of course, you guys can join the conversation as well. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. You can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And, of course, we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN.
Tonight, it's Game 4 of the National League Division Series. After splitting games 1 and 2 in San Francisco, the Giants retake the series lead with a Game 3 win in Los Angeles. Now the Dodgers face a must-win Game 4. Will they survive?
That one back, it's got a chance, and it's gone. Home run, Evan Longoria.
Game 4, the Dodgers and Giants. Coverage begins tonight at 8:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Listen to the MLB playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night. Of course, you can join the conversation. We'll get to your messages a little bit later this hour here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, or you can text in 609-403-0970. Of course, we're also live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Joining us right now on the phone line to get more into what's been a very interesting last 36 hours. The Eagles win a game that I think for some people are still trying to figure out exactly how they won. Ben Simmons decided to show up unannounced at the Sixers and ask for a COVID test, which I think in and of itself is kind of funny. So getting to all of that and more, joining us right now on the phone line from NJ.com, Chris Franklin. He covers the Eagles and the Sixers for NJ.com. And he joins us right now on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing a little tired. I mean, just seeing everything that was been going on in the city of Philadelphia, man. It's craziness. How are you?
I'm doing all right. And you know what? I want to start with the Eagles because that's that's at least the topic I can wrap my head around a little more. And, you know, coming off of that win in Carolina, it was great to see Jonathan Gannon's defense show up and play better. And Gannon made adjustments. But then Sirianni regressed. And I'm at a point where I just feel like this team is Jekyll and Hyde. I don't know, and I can't trust them to be anything from 1 week to the next, Chris.
And I think you see that a lot. It's a very young, when you have a young coaching staff and you have a lot of young players, you'll see that a lot. And there's some growing pains, I think, that are going through there. The defense finally gets things right as you mentioned. And the defensive line, the secondary as well, too, they all looked really good. But then you go look over to the offensive side, and it was the play calling early on. They were trying to attack the side with the screens and everything, trying to slow down the Panthers' rush, but it just wasn't hitting. And then it took them the fourth quarter in desperation, the way Jalen Hurts and the rest of that offense did to come back. And you have a lot of questions going on. I mean, you expect this. I don't think anybody expected them to be like a 10, 11, 12 win team. If this was a veteran squad, a really truly veteran squad, I probably say, okay, it's going to concern, but since these guys are very young, they're all trying to still figure out each other, new coaching staff and everything else. I think you're expecting to see some growing pains, but it really is up and down throughout this early part of the season.
When you look at what we saw from the offense specifically, how much of it is Sirianni and how much of it is Jalen Hurts? Because, Chris, I got to be honest with you, and I know there's a group of people out there who disagree with me very strongly about this. I just have trouble placing too much blame on a guy who has started 9 games in the NFL versus a guy who is literally telling him in his ear what to do.
I think it's more serious. It's more at this point. I think it's more Sirianni than is a Hurts. If I had to put like a percentage on it, I'd probably say if you're just looking at, especially the last Sunday, I'd probably put 70% on Sirianni, 30% of Hurts, because Hurts was not flawless in that win. I mean, there's some balls that I'm sure he would like to have back. The inaccuracies popped up a little bit again, but when it came to the overall play calls, you would think that, especially against a team that had trouble stopping the run, especially toward the middle of that line, the Panthers did. The Panthers had trouble stopping the Dallas Cowboys. You see them running in between the tackles and consistently stay with the run to not only slow down that pass rush, but they actually had some physicality to push back against them, but they didn't really do it. And the RPOs, I know they're an important part of this offense, especially when you have an athletic quarterback like Jalen Hurts. And a lot of the zone Bs are important, but there has to come a time you have to start seeing this offense evolve a little bit. And And that all goes back to the play calling and what Sirianni puts on that play sheet and the game planning.
When you look at long term, can Sirianni grow from this? Is this just part of the growing pains of a young coach who's never been a head coach, never been a play caller, or are there some legitimate red flags here that we got to make sure that if he doesn't figure out, might be signs of things never getting better?
I think he can still grow. I mean, it's his first season actually calling plays. I think especially when you're struggling, or if you're getting into a rut when it comes to your play calls and stuff are not working, you have to be open to hearing stuff from the outside. I thought he did that. He mentioned that Jeff Stoutland came to him, at least Shane Steichen as well too. Some of the other coaches came to him with some suggestions, stuff they were seeing that the Panthers were doing in certain plays that would work against that, and he was open and listening to it. I think if he's a little more stubborn, say like a certain coach does in Chicago and Nagy, where he was like, no, I'm going to call this, I want to stay with this, I would be more concerned. But it seems like he's open to listening to a lot of voices and getting through this thing. So I think he will get better as time goes on. It still has to work, but he still has a ways to go if he wants to be among the top play callers in the league.
Chris Franklin joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM at C Franklin News on Twitter. Check out all of his work over at NJ.com covering the Eagles as well as the Sixers. We'll get to the Sixers stuff in just a bit. But Chris, I want to get to the defense now, because when we've now seen that the Panthers, the 49ers, and the Falcons, the points they allowed to them was doubled by the Chiefs and the Cowboys. You have 41-3 teams, 83-2 teams. Now you got Tom Brady on Thursday night, I should say. After that, though, the schedule does thin out a little bit. So is this defense after the Thursday night game going to be able to make a major impact on the rest of the schedule?
I think they will. I mean, you still have the division games. I mean, look at the Giants right now, what's going on up north. They got a lot of injury concerns. And you look at Washington, you'll eventually probably have Ryan Fitzpatrick back, but you look at the rest of the offense, besides Terry McLaurin, you don't really see anybody that really fears you. And then you have Detroit on the schedule, which is a winnable game. Vegas now there's so much upheaval going on, what's going on with John Gruden. So there's a lot of stuff that you see this defense, and I think it'd be encouraging. I think for a long-term thing, I think it'll be encouraging to see if they do that. They still need to consistently get pressure besides Javon Hargrave up the middle. If they can get Fletcher Cox to play the way he did beforehand, if they continue to get pressure from that front four, I think a lot of that stuff when it comes to the pass defense will rectify itself. I mean, I think I saw there's like third overall when it comes to like pass, something like that. They're top 10 against the pass defense. And it's remarkable when you look at some of the personnel that are on here, especially the linebackers, but somehow Jonathan Gannon is finding a way to at least stop them in some of these teams in that aspect. So there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to this defense. You just have to make sure they continue to grow as the season progresses.
The other thing I'm curious about the defense, Chris, is the fact that a lot of people have been critical of specific players on this team, specifically the linebackers. Obviously, Eric Wilson has been a disappointment. Alex Singleton, people question is he really a fit for what Jonathan Gannon wants to do, right? Anthony Harris, he's been a little disappointing at times. Rodney McLeod, I'm not fully sure if he's 100%, honestly, coming back from that injury. So how much of what we've seen also on the defense with individuals has been maybe they're not the best fit for what Gannon wants to do? And how much of it may be that, maybe Gannon was misusing them at times?
I think it's a little bit here and there. I think it's more personnel based. I look at the way that Gannon was allowed Gannon allowed Darius Slay to follow the best receiver, DJ Moore, around. I thought that played to his strength. He even said today that he's not going to be able to do that all the time. Depends on the matchup. So that's the way he's looking at it. But when you have a guy like Eric Wilson, and you mentioned him, a guy who's missed a lot of tackles, he's got the athletic gifts. He reminds me a lot. It's eerie. He reminds me of Mark Semino. There's something about that number 50 because he looks like Mark Semino out there. And he's missing a lot of tackles. He's not being that impact type of guy. I think Alex Singleton, you know what you're getting with him. You'll get a guy who's fast, who will make the tackles when need be, is okay coverage. The Eagles just have to, I think the one thing in the offseason, I know it's been said for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. They need to find a linebacker. They need to address the linebacker position, because I think once they do that, if they can get a 3-down linebacker that's the ability to drop back into coverage, I think they'll be fine, and everything else will fall into place. It just seems like that second level of the defense, there's just so many questions when it comes to them.
Chris Franklin from NJ.com joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at C Franklin News on Twitter. Chris, let's flip it over to the Sixers, because Ben Simmons didn't tell anybody, but he showed up last night and said, let me in the door and give me a COVID test. And then today the Sixers have to rearrange their schedule to meet with him and get him a physical. And I mean, what is your initial reaction to this whole thing? Because I put out the tweet last night of Ron Burgundy, says, boy, that escalated quickly, that meme out there, because that's how I feel like. It's like we went from 0 to 60 in split seconds. Ben Simmons was, sticking to his guns, and now all of a sudden he's in Philadelphia and he's talking about rejoining the team.
I'll use another Anchorman analogy. Great move, by the way. His decision was more like brick. I still understand he had no leverage in this deal, in the situation, and I know it was rough for him to. He had a rough playoff series. I don't know if he wanted to escape everything, and I know his camp was putting out saying that, oh wow, he's not a fit with Joel Embiid. He just can't move this. He needs a place to grow and be the type of player that where Joel Embiid is. You just look at it, I just understand why you do that. I think the Sixers basically are the best situation for him right now, because I think until he learns to actually shoot more frequently from the outside, I think it's going to be rough. I just don't understand why he wanted to hold out. And I think he started to look at seeing that escrow account and more money getting added to it more and more. And he's realizing that's a lot of money just sitting around there. I'm just giving up. So I think there was an impetus for him to get in there, and because if you're losing that much money, you start to look at it's like $300,000 a game, stuff like that. It starts to hurt after a while. So I think it was more about that. And listen, I think there's still an avenue for him to actually get back on the floor. I think it's best for both sides if he gets back on the floor, because heck, we've seen trade deadlines come. Stranger things have happened, and if he's showing that he's playing well, playing defense, it actually shows he's willing to do the outside shot and being a good contributor. I think he can be moved if they want to, or if not, if he's playing well, you go from there.
I've said multiple times, Chris, since the end of the playoff series that, I know a lot of people, they want to point to the free throws. They want to point to Ben not shooting. They want to point to a lot of things on the court. But I got to tell you, Chris, I'm more about Ben Simmons off the court. He does and says a lot of things that make me question if he's in a good headspace. From that documentary when he is at LSU, the things he said in that, to how he's handled his personal life, to how he's talked to the media, saying that he runs off his resume sometimes for some of his answers. I just have to wonder, is this young man really, is he okay? You know what I mean? Like, I've never heard of somebody just not telling anybody that he's going to be there and just showing up and saying, hey, let me in the door. I mean, he just says and does things that don't add up.
We all forget, too, he's still a very young guy, too. And I know when I was young, I used to think, like, oh, I'll be able to do this. I'll be able to overcome this. Don't worry about this. And then you realize you get older, it's like, wow, I really shouldn't do that. I think it's coming to a point where you're hoping that he realizes, hey, you know what? I have a finite amount of seasons here in the NBA, and he realizes, hey, I got to develop my game a little bit more. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens within the next couple of seasons. And seeing the reaction that not only the fans, but some of the other executives and stuff that's been leaked out about what he's doing, and even some of the players, I think when he starts to see that and realizes that he's not a top 10 player at the moment, he's going to have to realize, you know what, I got to start going back in the gym. I have to start changing my outlook on some things. So I think it's more of a product of youth, because he's given a lot of money really young, and he has that. A lot of people, that young basketball players, especially, have that Superman complex. Like, I'll just keep making it and getting the money and just doing what I want. And it's going to come. It comes with maturity, and I think he's going to have to mature very, very fast. And this latest situation probably hit him in the face, and it probably might set him right, hopefully.
So let's say that Ben Simmons and the Sixers, for just the topic of conversation, let's say they figure it out. Let's say Ben rejoins the team. Embiid said last night that, he'll be happy to have Ben back. We've heard numerous players and coaches and people say they want Ben back here. So is it going to be business as usual? Is it going to be just, hey, the last few months didn't happen, or will there be some legitimate tension and issues?
I think before anything, I think they have to have like an internal team meeting before anything to work to hash it out. And then they're going to have to come out in a unified front. I don't think it's going to be business as usual, especially for the first probably 5 home games, preseason, regular season, what have you, because their fans are going to definitely let them hear it. There's no escaping that, because the way stuff that was put out there and the way that he wanted to leave the city, I think that the fans are going to do that. But Simmons is going to have to hope he has to pull Allen Iverson, where he hears the trade demands and all of a sudden he plays MVP type ball. I think Embiid will be the MVP no matter what, and I think Simmons is going to be the number 3 option in my offensive sense. But he's going to have to pull something like that, because the people of Philadelphia and around the surrounding area, Jersey and every surrounding areas, they're not going to forget it. So definitely it'll be business as usual from the basketball and inside the training facility thing, but outside it's going to take some time for him to regain the trust of a lot of people around here.
Chris, before I let you go, who is more of a confounding individual at this point? Is it Ben Simmons? Is it Carson Wentz? Or is it Kyrie Irving?
Oh, that's tough. I'm going to go with Irving. And I say it's because of this. Simmons, like I said before, Simmons, I point to youth. When it comes to Wentz, I know he has his beliefs when it comes to the vaccine, but it seems like he's willing to at least be a team, like for other things, he's been a team guy and is helpful out. When it comes to Irving, when you look at, because he's hurting his team when it comes to that, because you can't play, you're playing in New York, a city that has those statutes in place when it comes to the vaccine. Unless he gets traded somewhere that doesn't have something like that, say if he goes to Dallas Mavericks or something like that, or Houston Rockets, until that happens, he's hurting his team. He truly is a part-time player. So I understand he's doing his research, and it's taking a long time for him to do that and everything else. But the season's here, and if he's not going to do it, and he's not going to do that, it's just going to hurt the Nets as a whole. Even though it's hard to say it hurts the Nets, even though they have James Harden and Kevin Durant, but it still hurts them overall, and from being a title contender.
He is Chris Franklin with NJ.com. Check out all their coverage over there of the Eagles and the Sixers. You can follow him on Twitter at CFranklinNews for more thoughts and insights. And of course, don't forget about the podcast with him and Mike K, the No Huddle Show. Of course, it's podcasting on all your podcasting platforms. Chris, always appreciate you jumping on. I think we covered a lot of ground here today.
It definitely was. It's always fun talking to you, Josh, man. Thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. Good stuff from Chris Franklin here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We will get to your guys' thoughts and comments on the other side. Here, I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. This Thursday night, it's week 6 of the 2021 season, with the Eagles hosting the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And with zeros on the clock, the Eagles have beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Pre-game coverage begins at 7. Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 8:20. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea
Equal housing lender.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Great stuff there from Chris Franklin from NJ.com. Of course, you guys can chime in on the Eagles, Sixers, and more. Of course, text board is open, 609-403-0973. Priority messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Download for free from the Apple App Store and Google Play. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. Of course, we are live, as always, on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Of course, we have Flyers hockey resuming this Friday night. You can hear the action on 97.3 ESPN. The NHL season begins tonight officially. And with the hockey season back, there's no better place to bet the NHL than with FanDuel Sportsbook. NHL parlays are a perfect way to make every shot feel like a hat trick, because you can turn a little bet into a big payday. And all season long, FanDuel is giving every customer NHL parlay insurance. You'll get up to $25 back each day if your parlay falls one leg short. Don't have a FanDuel account? Sign up now using promo code Hennig to place your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Offers like these are one of the many reasons I love betting on FanDuel, the number one rated sportsbook app in America. Make every moment more this season. Bet on the NHL with FanDuel Sportsbook, and remember to use promo code Hennig for new users to get their first risk-free bet up to $1,000. Must be 21 or older to play and present in New Jersey. Parlay insurance, max refund $25 per day. Risk-free bet for first online real money wager only. Refund issues non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days for parlay insurance and 14 days for risk-free bet. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yeah, speaking of the hockey, I'm curious to see what this NHL coverage looks like on television tonight, because ESPN apparently has invested not just money to the NHL, but a ton of resources into this. And I was reading online the other day that apparently there's a lot of people up in Bristol who are personally invested at high levels of management in this NHL thing working out. So I'm curious to see how this looks and how it plays out for the NHL and ESPN television. So we'll find out tonight with their doubleheader. Like I said, Flyers are back in action on Friday night. You can hear the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. We are your home for the the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers here in South Jersey on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Eagles football Thursday night versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. You hear that as well here starting at 7 p.m. right with me on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Back to the Ben Simmons stuff, and I didn't give this as much time as I could, because I wanted to get to Chris Franklin. I wanted to talk about the Eagles stuff a little bit at the beginning of the show, but I want to get back to the Ben Simmons thing, because the Ben Simmons situation is going to be very interesting to monitor. If you think about the Ben Simmons situation, you realize that long term, it doesn't really make a lot of sense what he's doing. There's really not a lot to the Ben Simmons situation that makes sense. Ben Simmons says and does a lot of things that, like I said, normal people don't do. So that's why, for me, when I see stuff like he didn't tell Rich Paul he was coming to town, when I hear stuff like Ben Simmons just showed up and said, give me a COVID test, let me in the door, texting Elton Brand. When I hear Ben Simmons answer questions about his free throw shooting and his 3-point shooting, or lack of, shall we call it, with answers like, well, I'm a 3-time All-Star. Listen, you guys can complain about the on-the-court stuff. I'm more about the off-the-court. I don't know if Ben Simmons is built for this game. I don't know if Ben Simmons is built to go through another season in Philadelphia. Now, at the same time, Ben Simmons wants his money. And I tweeted this out last night. Listen, and I say this many times here on 97.3 ESPN. There are two kinds of athletes. There's the athlete who loves the game and is passionate and driven to be great. Okay? Guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, guys like Tom Brady, guys like, Bryce Harper. They love the game. They're passionate. They're hardworking. They're grinders. They do whatever it takes to be successful. And then you have the other kind of athlete. The athlete who loves what the game does for their bank account. They love the fact that they can play sports and they can make millions of dollars. And I think that's where Ben Simmons is. And we just have to accept that. You just have to accept the reality that Ben Simmons just doesn't love basketball as much as you may want him to. Listen, Ben is never going to be like a Giannis. He's never going to be LeBron James. He's never going to be one of these guys who is going to work and put himself through the mental and physical rigors to be the best in the world. It's not in his personality. Ben Simmons is happy being a 3-time All-Star. He doesn't have ambition to be anything more. And listen, if that's his prerogative and that's who he is, there's nothing we can do about it. He is who he is. He is what he is. And I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like he's anything else. That's why, for me, I don't get, piping mad about Ben Simmons on the court play. Because I look at Ben Simmons and I just accept the fact that he will never be a guy whose ambition allows him to be as great as other people do. Listen, if me or you listening to me right now on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City, if you and I had Ben Simmons' abilities and his size and his skill set and all the intangibles that he has, maybe it would be different for us. Maybe certain people are just not inclined to be a certain way. And that's why, for me, I can't get bent out of shape about Ben Simmons not shooting threes. What bothers me is the free throws. What bothers me is not making that dunk that's right in front of you. What bothers me is the answers and the reasoning that he gives. What bothers me is that Ben Simmons is more interested in posting videos of him working out the same workouts every single year. There is nothing different about Ben Simmons from the time he left college to now, except that he put on muscle onto a lean frame. That's it. And for whatever reason, Ben is content with that. And that's why, for me, I just can't get too riled about the 3-point thing. I accept who he is. And if that's a me problem, that's a me problem. But as far as I'm concerned, Ben Simmons is who he is. And I don't look at him as anything more. I understand he was the first overall pick, but let's be realistic. There's a ton of guys who were drafted first overall. They're just dudes. They're just another average to below average NBA player. There's a ton of them. Go look them up. Andrew Bogut, Greg Oden, Kwame Brown. You know who wasn't a top 5 pick? Giannis, Steph, Kobe. Being a first overall pick means nothing to me. That's why I don't get bent out of shape over Ben Simmons about certain things. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Hennig. I'll catch you tomorrow here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey Friday night on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action.
He scored! The Flyers open the 2021 season hosting the Vancouver Canucks.
Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN, and listen live on the free mobile app.